All right, so let's take this to the next step. So I think what we wanted to do with Adam and I Got Legs is really put in perspective of you have a patient need. You have something, you've identified a challenge, and he's taken on the personal challenge of making that better, being independent, being able to do more things, and you can see what a vision will actually evolve and putting a long-term plan together. So this all starts, as an entrepreneur or as an engineer, or as you kind of build each one of these facets of what a new company might want to look like. So what we're going to do on this panel is actually understand what it might take from taking one of these student-based projects and turning it into a company. So we have two of our panelists. I'm going to let them introduce themselves, but really they each come from different perspectives, working on these projects and then looking at them from a startup mentality and truly being an entrepreneur. So we'll start with Matt and then we'll go to Lane.
Hey, good morning. My name is Matt Cupelli. I'm a 2011 and 2012 grad of biomedical engineering here at Clemson. Dr. Dean was my mentor and advisor my time here, so it's good to see you. Thanks everybody for being here. I've been involved with the program since I graduated. I'm still a design mentor, and Jeremy and Larry let me come back every year and give a lecture, which is very kind of them to indulge me to do that. I live in Greenville. I work at a company called North American Rescue. I've been there for almost 14 years, and I'm vice president of operations there. I'm also the new CEO of a startup called Blue Ridge Surgical Innovations that was a spin out of one of the Clemson MEng projects that we'll be talking about a little bit more today.
Hey everybody, good morning. My name is Lane Norris. I live in Naples, Florida. I work at Arthrex, and I have since I finished my undergrad in 2021, but I also earned my master's of engineering in Jeremy's program here in 2023. I do product development and foot and ankle products, so really from ideation to commercialization, the full life cycle.
All right, perfect. So what I want to do now is just let's talk about your projects and your path and the journey you've kind of been on, very different pathways, but also what are the big steps that you went through on that journey, and how did it shape some of those decisions that you made?
Yeah, so when I actually got to Clemson, I wanted to be a chemical engineer. I was in the program for that. I made it through my sophomore year, and I said thermodynamics is the worst, and so I changed to bioengineering at the time. I knew that I wanted to kind of get into the healthcare space anyway, so it was a pretty easy jump. And then since then, I would say it's the best decision I've made in my life. I've been able to get into orthopedics, which I genuinely love. My master's program, I was able to work on projects in soft tissue repair for the shoulder. And then I translated that into my career. I do soft tissue now for foot and ankle. And, those skills that you get at Clemson do translate. And I'm kind of get into that with a bit of asterisk later. But it's, the time that we spend here is so valuable for building your career. Matt?
Yeah, in terms of the, I'll focus on the kind of the startup project, but this opportunity was presented to me earlier in the year, probably about April, and the project was a surgical retractor for soft tissue retraction during distal radius surgeries. It had come out of the MEng program. The student group had been working for almost a year and trying to kind of figure out what to do with it and how to commercialize it. And they were working with some folks at SCRA, which is a fantastic agency. I know Steve is here. And the folks at SCRA recommended to them, hey, you guys need to find someone who can help you commercialize this the right way, and someone who's done it before. And I've spent my entire career in medical device commercialization. I've done a little bit of design and development, but I'm not actually that good of an engineer. That's not my strength. But commercialization, bringing that thing and kind of, making it real, bringing it to life is really where I've spent most of my career. So they reached out to me. I learned about the project and got real excited about it. It was a good idea. It was a good market. I think it was a captive customer base. And so, I agreed to work on the project, and we got started. And, one of the things that I will say early on was, about the MEng program. I think they do a fantastic job of kind of that initial customer discovery and market discovery. But that's really where I wanted to focus a lot of my time. Again, I'm not a designer per se, but the engineering teams really were. The engineering team was really focused on the design, and even the two questions to Adam today were design focused. And I think it was a perfect kind of summation of where that project was when I came on. It was very focused on the design, and there hadn't been enough focus on, okay, what do you do with that design, right? Like, how do you bring that to life? Do you have a customer for it? Do you have a market for it? Where do you go with it? And that's kind of where I came in, and we've been working the last several months to kind of figure that out.
Okay, great. So, so you both have different journeys, but, everything starts, and even in Adam's case, starts with a great idea. Great idea basically in this medical device world is table stakes. You have to have a great idea of, no matter what the origin or what problem you're solving, you have to start with a great idea. So my question is what kills great ideas? Right? If you can start with a great idea, where does it get derailed? And as you're going from a student into this transition space of going into industry or going into a project or going into as an entrepreneur, what kills those great ideas that everybody has?
Yeah, I think there's a long and windy road to go from great idea to success. There's a lot of things that can derail you on the way. We've run into a few, but th- there are no shortage of good ideas. That is true. And as Ivy said, that's kind of you haven't done a lot with the great idea yet, right? That's kind of the cover charge to get into the bar downtown. You haven't ordered a drink yet. You haven't sat down and made connections yet. You haven't done anything else yet. You got into that very, very first door. So, arguably just as important as the good idea are the relationships you build along the way, the partnerships you forge to support and supplement skills that maybe you don't have, or gaps that you have. It is relationships with investors and funding opportunities. It's that customer discovery and that market discovery that make sure that, yes, this is a great idea, but can we sell it? Is there enough customers to make this thing worth our time to focus on? So there's a lot that can derail a great idea, and in our case, one of the things that has kind of popped up is we've had some disagreement among the student team more recently about the value of that idea. And so personally, I've tried to kind of structure our new entity in such a way that it can be commercially successful. And the student team who kind of had the idea originally, we just have some discrepancies in terms of what the value of that IP is. I think it's this much. They think it's 90% of the pie. So, I think there's just a misunderstanding of the value of that great idea. Like you said, it's table stakes, but you can't get anywhere without a good idea. But a good idea doesn't get you there.
Yeah, I 100% agree. But then to kind of look into the design side, as an engineer, of course, I'm going to talk about that. I think also the opposite or the enemy of good is perfect, right? You've heard it before, but I think that rings true, especially for startups. There are a lot of great ideas, and you have the idealized version in front of you, but and you can, talk to surgeons. You could try it in the lab 100 times, but really you're not going to get all of the information that you need until you actually get something to market, get it out there, and get it in the hands of people that have no idea what they're doing and can break it in ways that you never even imagined. And that's when you get the most valuable feedback, is getting the market response to everything. So I think being able to take the leap from a good idea into a translatable product that you could then make better over time, and letting yourself do that is a good way to move forward. And trying to find the perfect product, the perfect idea, can really kill a lot of momentum.
No, I'll show my age here real quickly, but does anybody remember the gorilla testing the Samsonite luggage? Yeah, that was my role as an engineer. When as an engineer, everybody brought me their products and said, "Can you break this?" And so I definitely relate to, can you actually break this in any way possible? But, it's, you sit down and you take these steps, whether it's good to perfect, or whether it's, get the funding, go to the VC and make these decisions. And you have to make some heart-wrenching decisions. I've been in this industry for 30 years. My skin's like shoe leather right now. It's so tough. But you have to know when to pivot or when to persist. So when you think about some of these obstacles that you guys have brought up, how do you take it to that next step and say, okay, I need to pivot, change directions, or I need to persist because the team is right, I'm right, and we're going to go straight down this and get it solved?
Yeah, I could start. From a big industry standpoint, oftentimes the answer is persist, because you have the funds to persist. And you've got, an idea of what's going to happen, but also sometimes you still have to pivot. For instance, a project that I was recently on, we've been working, I can't give too many details, but we've been seeing good results in the lab. We've been, working on all of the documentation up to this point with painstaking, trying to prepare it for freeze and then go into testing. And we made a decision to pivot at the end, just because, all of our market response was, we want, like, yes, what you're doing is working, but we want something else. It was good. One of those cases where good, but not good enough. And now we're going for perfect, and we got to try to shoot the gap somewhere in the middle. So I think it's oftentimes kind of dictated by external factors on when you need to pivot and when you need to persist, but you have to be open to hearing that instead of just moving forward because you've already spent so much time and energy into persisting.
Yeah, that's the sunk cost fallacy, right? Like you've sunk so much into it that you have to keep going. I think the biggest thing I'd say for that decision point is I would encourage you to try to use evidence-based decision making. It is very easy to get trapped into a gut feeling decision making paradigm where it feels like this is working, or we talked to this one person and they liked it, or things like that. But I think especially in the early stages, being able to do small pilot studies, get real feedback, as you said, get responses, and actually creating a pool of evidence to drive your decision making. You might end up with a different decision that you were thinking about going into that. Google is famous for A/B testing on their search engine and stuff like that, right? So they put the exact same search engine up with one little change, and they see how their users interact with that change. Based on the user interaction, they either keep that change or they roll it back, right? And so they get real-time evidence on this A/B testing all the time, and that's how they make decisions. I think the best decisions are made with evidence. So if you're deciding to pivot or you're deciding to persist, those are difficult things. And that can be whether it's, a design thing, it could be a personnel decision. Do we keep this person or do we find somebody else? Any number of decisions. and if it's not something that you can run a quick test on or prototype or something like that, you know, reach out to people who have gone through it before. You know, in the entrepreneurship and startup ecosystem, I have seen absolutely nothing but a willingness and an ableness to help. The ecosystem is extremely gracious. There are great state agencies and or statewide agencies to really support entrepreneurs and in the startup community. We have some in Greenville, the Brooke T. Smith Launchpad here in Clemson. There are a lot of folks who've gone through it before, and they can give you some best practices and how to kind of help navigate difficult situations. So those are always tough, but you know, you're not in it alone. So try to make decisions with evidence and lean on people who have gone through it before.
Yeah, I kind of want to come back to that point because I think that's one thing that we really wanted to drive in is leveraging other people's experience. When I mentioned earlier that, you know, you come out of Clemson with a great education, that pales in comparison once you actually get out there to experience. It's really hard to understate the value of other people and working with them and their willingness to help. I think, you know, if you are interested in starting your own company, looking at designing your own product, and you want to look around, like you don't know who to talk to, where to start, look around the room. I mean, everybody's here because they want to help Clemson students. So if you have questions, if you're even curious, absolutely go talk to them, talk to everybody, just get down names, make connections, keep up with everyone, because this is where you could find that experience.
Perfect. That's a nice segue. So before I go to my last question, are there any questions from the audience? We have a student that's parlayed a design project into working for a large company. We have a panelist who's now CEO pro tempore in a startup business coming out of the design center. So any questions for our panelists?
You guys both mentioned coming out of the Clemson program. What were some of the gaps that now you've talked to, Lane, you especially talked to, it pales in comparison to getting into industry? What were some of the gaps that were really evident when you got into industry and that didn't get filled, I guess, from Clemson and the program?
Yeah, so I actually think the program does a great job preparing you for everything, but you haven't taken Hobie's class yet. I don't think he's going to talk a lot about getting your reps in. And so I think it's just the nature of the beast of not having those repetitions, not having done it for 40 hours a week for 5 years, 3 years, whatever it is. So it's really the life cycle of work and how you get into industry. And at least that's how I've experienced. Matt, would you like to?
Yeah, I think I really do think Clemson's MEng program is fantastic. I think Jeremy and Larry have done a great job of bringing industry experience to the program and kind of being able to approach it in that way as opposed to, you know, a purely academic mindset. I think one of the things I would say is when you're at a company, it is a little bit of a different mindset. I know one of the things I've experienced is this kind of idea that, hey, this is like another group project. I'm like, no, this is not a group project. There is no, you know, one person doesn't get to do all the work and the other three get to, reap all the rewards. Not that that's how all group projects go, but we've all been in teams where there is a little bit of that dynamic. I think, you know, in a company, your hard work and competence is rewarded. And, if you're a non-contributor, that will be identified. And it is not, you know, they're paying you to do a job. You're not paying to show up to a class. So I think it's just a bit of a different, you know, I guess the stakes are different, right? And, the assignments are going to be a lot more abstract. You're going to be living in a lot more gray areas than there are in the collegiate world, in the academic world. So it's just a bit of a different mindset. But I think the most important thing is to go in every day and show up and say, I will do whatever it takes to add value to the company or wherever I am today.
So here's my last question. So put yourself in one of the seats in the audience. We just went through 2 case studies. What is your take-home message for our audience members that you would want to hear about transitioning from a project to a company?
I think my takeaway would be, and Adam was a fantastic example of it, but is never forget who your customer is and never forget what their needs are. I think a lot of times we do get so focused on the internal stuff we're dealing with, whether it's lawyers or patents or design or whatever. But again, you have a customer who has a need or a pain point, or they don't maybe know of a better way to do something. That is the most important thing. That is going to define whether you're successful or not, is that customer, and them being willing to, kind of be your champion, buy your product or your service. You have to provide value to them. And I start every design meeting. I'll tell all the groups that I mentor, I said, I would love for your first slide every meeting to be reminding us why you're doing this project. Is you got to understand your why. And that always is derived from, we are solving customers' problems. So, you guys are engineers. It's easy it's cool to think about the design, but there's a reason that you're doing that design, and don't forget that reason.
Yeah, I guess I would say, having been through senior design program and the massive engineering program, really, if you can take those, I know it's hard, you've been in school for a long time, but if you could really take those seriously, if you think you've got an idea, something that you're even just vaguely interested in, and take that into something that you think you could work on and continue to scale, commercialize. Clemson has alumni, this, kind of event, resources just begging to help you take it to the next step. If it's something that you're even remotely thinking about doing, go try it. Talk to people. That's what this is all set up for. And so I think really don't take the opportunities that you have in your last couple of years here. I know some of you are younger than that, but do not take those opportunities for granted. This is set up to enable you. So really try to, and if you want to go the industry route, it works out pretty well too. I mean, I think you could absolutely do that, but I find myself wondering if I could have taken more advantage of this and ended up with, some of the brilliant minds here starting my own company. So absolutely look into it, grab onto it, hold on tight, and actually try to give it your all.
Great. So, well, first of all, thank you both. Your jobs aren't done yet. So I'll just say, remember these faces because at lunchtime, we are going to have networking sessions where we'll break out and you can talk to both Matt and Lane and all of our panelists to get some of their insights, or maybe have questions you didn't want to ask them in public. But these guys will be, the faculty will be up front at lunch. We're going to take a quick picture, then we're going to break out into networking events. So just if you see a face or you got questions for them, follow them to the room or the space in the launch pad, and you'll be able to ask them anything you want. But thank you all very much for sharing your experience.